Excuse me, there's somebody sitting down.
But Teacher Mary said you can sit anywhere. You're not supposed to book for someone a seat.
Come on, there's plenty of space around. Make yourself comfortable.
Just wait.
What does she mean by just wait?
You just earned yourself a spot on her closing day wanted list. She's going to beat you up.
See, you guys share the joke.
I just got in trouble for booking your seat.
You got into trouble because of me. Who's that? I show you how to deal with people here. I think we should resolve things very peacefully, my friends.
So now you're Kofi Annan.
No, it's just that I know how ugly things can get when they're not solved.
I feel a story coming on.
So one day, the magic bus was flying through the air when the engine started to stutter. The gang looked worried, but Chuma pulled a lever and a parachute appeared. The bus floated into a strange village. As Chuma tried to fix the engine, the magical four went out to explore the village, which was eerily quiet except for a few huts. As they wandered around, the sun was very strong. The gang became very hot and started to sweat. The gang were really thirsty, and Specs went to find water for the group. Before too long, he saw a tap. Filling up a bottle, he drank and drank. As he passed over the bottle, a small boy appeared and snatched the bottle out of Specs' hands. "That's my water," said the boy. Well, Specs didn't like being spoken to like that. So, without thinking, he snatched the bottle back. The small boy responded by pushing Specs. Specs wasn't going to stand for that. So, with all his might, he pushed the small boy as hard as he could. The small boy landed on the floor. As the small boy got up, he suddenly became tall, taller than all of them combined. And the more they looked at him, the more changes they spotted. His arms and legs were getting bigger, and they tore up his uniform, leaving him naked. But instead of seeing a naked body, what they saw scared them. He had suddenly become a robot, and an angry robot for that matter.
Wow. So what did they do?
The gang was so shocked that at first we just stood there momentarily frozen. The huge robot, with a scary face, looked at them, then roared in laughter. The robot took the bottle of water and emptied it onto the ground. All the gang threw their arms up into the air in a sign of surrender. The robot let out a mighty laugh that shook the ground we were stepping on. "You think I'm done with you? That was just warming up," said the robot, and before any of them could move, the robot quickly picked up Specs from the ground and took his specs off him. He wore them and proudly said, "Great, now I can read your mind and everyone else's mind." The robot dropped Specs down with a thud. The robot then glared at them and burst out laughing. "I can read that you are all very scared and are planning to run away from me. You are not going anywhere," shouted the mean robot. "Quickly, let us run left," shouted Boomba. The giant robot was hot on their heels, taking a step and reaching them. He nearly stepped on them as they scrambled to get away from him. "Guys, let's go into the forest. The trees will hide us a little," a panicked Zawadi said, and they quickly ran into the forest, with the robot following behind, stepping on anything it came across. When it reached the forest, it could not see the kids because the robot was the same height as the trees. So they stood behind a tree, watching the robot from a distance. Suddenly, they saw the robot press a certain button on his chest, and he became smaller and smaller until he was the same size as the kids. He could then see them clearly and started approaching them fast. They were so scared and shocked that they had no time to think but to run again. "Quick, follow me," said Specs. The kids quickly ran off with Specs, making different corners that confused the robot. You know, robots get confused by corners. They prefer a straight path, he said, panting. And true enough, the kids turned back and saw that they had left the robot far away. Just as they were getting excited about being able to beat the robot, they heard the sound of a huge engine, almost like a plane, and wondered what that could be. It was getting closer and closer as they were getting curious and curious. Zawadi decided to turn back and see how far the robot was, and she saw nothing. She turned to the rest of the group in excitement. Guys, I think the robot lost its way. The rest caught on in the excitement and stopped. They were suddenly shocked when they heard the same engine noise revving up on top of them. Looking up, they were shocked to see that the robot had changed itself into a small robot plane and was ready to crash land on them.
Oh dear, did it land on them?
How big was this plane that it fit into a forest?
Could they run away?
See, they were trapped. They could not move.
The robot quickly converted himself back into the huge robot, crashing trees in the process and picking them off the ground with him. He then told them in a loud voice that he was going to take all their powers and leave them powerless. He quickly took their powers and dropped them all on the ground as he experimented with the powers, making himself invisible, crying out loud like Raha, running at a supersonic speed. He did it all, over and over again. In no time, the powers overwhelmed him, and his robotic system could not handle it anymore, and he came crashing down onto the ground. His system failing, he slowly turned back into a human being, lying there on the ground as an exhausted small boy. Without hesitating, the gang ran back to the safety of the bus.
That was a brilliant story, Boomba.
Thanks.
Yeah, violence just leads to more violence.
And if it was his tap, Specs should have just apologized for not respecting his property.
You should learn to solve your issues peacefully. If not, you can also learn to solve them through dialogue. If it's too big, go to a teacher or someone older and wiser.
Yeah, like Shameri or Chuma.